Hi, this is William DeRaymond here at DeRaymond Art Studio. Today, I'd like to share with you some insights and a short contemplation on the nature of art appreciation as I have seen it. Very simple, very nuts and bolts kind of exercise. And we're going to hit a number of different bases, and let's get into it. We're going to compare and contrast the Mona Lisa by DaVinci and the portrait of Victor Choquet by Paul Cezanne. Two very different portraits, two very different styles. And in the context of that, we're going to go through the basic fundamental principles of the art form itself as I have experienced and seen it in my studies. And the one man I basically learned painting and sculpture from was a man named Antonio Salemi. He lived to be 102. He died in 1995. He was born in 1892, and his whole life was devoted to painting and sculpture, pretty much. He was a New York artist for 43 years. He did the portrait of President Eisenhower, which the president sat for and is now on the carrier Eisenhower. And had a couple Guggenheim fellowships, a number of one-man shows in New York City, and quite a lot of stories and certainly a lot of knowledge to share. But just a little background on him. But one of the other things was he studied with a guy named George L. Noyes when he was a teenager, who was an American Impressionist who had hung out with Monet. So it's a pretty good lineage, you might say, in terms of an art tradition that I'm sharing with you here. And I developed this exercise out of my working with him and my own painting and appreciation of art. So let's get into it. We'll start with the element of the picture. Now here we have the two paintings, the Mona Lisa and Victor Choquet. You see the whole painting at once. And obviously they're very different. There's all kinds of stuff going on in terms of brushwork with the Cezanne painting that aren't happening with the with the DaVinci, the Mona Lisa. Just to receive the nature of the picture of it. The one is a portrait of this woman, the other is a portrait of a man. Now Victor Choquet was close to Cezanne, and he was a very interesting character in the history of art because he was one of the first collectors of that group of artists, the Impressionists and Post-Impressionists. Renoir also did a painting of him, but he understood their value and he collected their works. There's some good stories about him. Okay, so that's the picture. We're not really dealing with anything but the picture. You see two quite different approaches to it, but it's still, you're looking at the picture. That's the subject, the motif that we're dealing with. Now we'll deal with another aspect of the medium, fundamental principle, the brush. And I'll show a couple details of the paintings, and we'll see how each artist uses the brush. So here we have DaVinci, and here we have Victor Choquet, the Cezanne. Let's look at the DaVinci first. So here we have this painting, and look at the intricate detail work that's done here in terms of the painting. It's not a photograph, but the detail is so intense at that level of literal detail that you can easily forget that there's a brush at work and easily see it as the reality of that garment. All the folds, all the embroidery details done like that. Now you can also see how that it's done painstakingly and with a great deal of concentration. Obviously, there's no question about that. Enormous concentration. The colors are beautiful. You see the light on her upper torso here, the chest area, the beautiful movement of those tones. But the brush is pretty much not really expressed as an aesthetic value, other than to say, with the brush, I completely surrender to creating the realism of the subject matter, the motif. So I like to use the word dominate because psychologically it has a certain value in terms of our psyche, both as modern human beings and as in terms of past history. And what you might be able to say about it is he dominates the motif with his technical prowess, technical in terms of his ability to recreate literally what is in front of him. It took a great deal of work and prowess to do that. But you don't think, oh, look at the beautiful brush strokes. You see, the bust, it's all in service to the expression of the sitter, of Mona Lisa. So you can say that he dominates the medium to the degree that he completely realizes in a specific way the sitter in terms of reality, in quotes again, because reality is, let's just say in terms of his motif, his subject matter. At the same time, because he is so focused on that kind of intricacy of detail, he is also dominated by the medium. He's dominated, the motif dominates him. He's dominated by this need to have that kind of perfect expression of what he sees as the detail of the scene in front of him, the subject matter. So he both dominates, and in turn, his life energy is totally dominated by his will. At the same time, that life energy, while dominated by the will, is also dominated by the subject matter. Now you can see this more clearly as we look at the Cezanne in comparison to this. So here's a detail of the Cezanne. Okay. So here's a detail of the Cezanne painting. The same level of focus. Now he's not concerned with the thread work of the garment. There's no concern with the literal nature of the sitter even. And the quality of the painting itself is a completely different quality. Here, the brush is very much expressed, not simply in service to the motif, not simply dominated by the mastery of the artist, but is actually a balanced expression of the artist and the brush and the color. All those things are in balance, but the brush is a really vital part of that balance. And here's where we can start to talk about rhythm. The brush creates a rhythm and all the textures within the context of the overall composition of the painting. And it's really this very sensual experience visually. You have all these beautiful tones and the passages of the same, from the neck, the beard, the collar, the coat, the background. These are very interesting tones, and they all move. It's always in movement. It's always in motion. It has, the brush creates a rhythm. Cezanne doesn't want to deny the brush, you might say. I liken the brush to painting as the vocal cords when singing. With the Da Vinci, as strong a work of art as it is, as famous as it is in history, we're stuck with something of a long-winded speech in terms of its technical and self-expression. With the Cezanne, you get a much more musical, aesthetic expression. That's all you can say. Everything has meaning and value in terms of the self-expression and the consciousness of Cezanne, choosing the tonalities and the way he's handling it with the brush, the immediacy of the brush. This is where the art begins to evolve into a more mature expression than simply the magnificent way an artist might capture a subject matter realistically. There's no longer, this is kind of like breaking free from the earth and taking flight, you might say. And it's not like other artists haven't done that. If you look at Rembrandt, for example, the older he got, the more his work opened up and the more the brush became a part of his work. And of course, being the master as he is, his brush work is just absolutely fantastic in a lot of those paintings. They go way beyond the kind of realism that that Da Vinci expresses in the Mona Lisa. So it's important to see that this is an expression of the consciousness of the artist, and it's an expression of the intelligence as well of Cezanne when you look at the subtlety of the colors. Now we'll talk a little bit about color in terms of it being a foundation principle of painting. I'll show some new details here, and we'll get into color a little bit more. Okay, color. Again, color and form are one, right? Color and form are one. This is true in painting, and it's true in real life as well. Of course, painting is part of real life. And it's very important to understand this if you're an artist, because it has a lot to do with color perspective. And it has everything to do with painting. And color and form are one. So what are we contemplating when we say that? What are we thinking about when we say that? There's nowhere you can look. You see it all as form and you see it all as color exactly at the same time. You can't separate the two. In other words, the form and the color are absolutely wedded together in terms of visual reality. There it is. The color comes out of the form, is part of the form, is the form. There's nothing that you don't see. There's nothing that you see. There's nothing that you see that isn't color. Okay? There's nothing that you see that isn't color. So as you approach a subject, if you're an artist, in terms of color, as you build the color up, the form is also built up. And this is kind of something that really came into fruition with the Impressionists, this kind of color perspective. Now, if you look at the Mona Lisa, it's beautiful color relationships. It's very subtly done. But what you're getting is, you're getting the reproduction of the human in a certain way, and a very kind of static image in terms of the color relationships. There are color. I mean, it's not bad color. It's beautiful. This is very beautifully done. The modulations are wonderful. You just take it in, enjoy the color, and see that. But and let's look at the Cezanne, and just in terms of color. So here the color, and of course a lot of it's because of the brush, but here the color really takes off from a simply realistic aesthetic. He's not trying to do the Mona Lisa, okay? He's not trying to be realist in that sense of the word, but it's easy to see the movement of the tones across all this different modulations of tone and the touches of the brush and the subtlety with which he puts down the brush. See, we're not dealing with simply a picture now. We're looking at the different tones and their passages. We're receiving these things as we would a piece of music. See the way he's looking at Victor Chouquet. He arrives at a tone on his palette, and then he places it there. So there's these passages everywhere where the tone is constantly shifting and changing. Look at this beautiful gray, blue, green. Look at the way this is his hair coming down here. Look at just the beautiful abstraction of reality that he's creating here. And he's doing it consciously. He's painting. He's going deeper within himself the more he's studying the work. And he's allowing the medium to express itself through him. So what you're getting, again, you look at a detail like this, you look at a painting, and you can see by noting the color and experiencing the color as music. In other words, each color is another vibration, another tonal vibration. Just like if you had a piano and you played three notes in harmony with one another or discordant with one another, you created sound that you can hear. That's the same. There's not a single bit difference except that you're receiving this into your nervous system through your eyes by being receptive to it. In the same way, you're not thinking about the sound of the music in terms of analyzing it when you're listening to a piece of music you love. You're experiencing it and enjoying it through your nervous system. It makes you feel good. It lifts your spirits. It might make you dance. And the same feeling can be had by looking at painting, by receiving the color vibrations through your eyes. In the same way you experience music through your ears. No different. And Cezanne was very conscious of this, which is why, through the depth of his feeling, which he called that petite sensation, that little sensation, that subtle sensation. Because in our culture, we're more concerned with pictures. It's got to be a picture. And how well is that picture realized? In what way? So this is realized in a very profound way. And I would venture to say that this kind of detail and aesthetic is in advance of the kind of detail and aesthetic in the Mona Lisa. It's an evolution of the art form, which is what happened in the 19th century, which is what happened in 19th century France. The art form grew up into a much more inner spiritual space, contemplative space. And that's what Cezanne represents that to a large degree in the 19th century. And we've entered into the 21st century now, and there have been further evolutions to the art form, but you can never to say that this isn't magnificent and stand the test of time and will always be beautiful aesthetically and visually. It's not encumbered by that kind of history. it really stands in a classical space. And there's more we can talk about with regards to the medium and as we go along. Well, let's look at one more set of details. You can see, well, let's look at the hands by DaVinci. Okay, we'll look at the hands by DaVinci. You know, what can you say? They're done beautifully. There's no question about it. They're done beautifully. What do they represent in terms of painting? Well, they represent the fact that the brush isn't really a big deal about it, except that it's subservient to the process and subservient to the technique of Da Vinci, and it serves the process of expressing these hands in a very delicate and realistic fashion. So we can say, oh, how wonderful Da Vinci made the hands. Wouldn't be what I would call expressionism. And if you can imagine what it took to create those hands, the time, the attention and concentration, and finally you have the hand realized beautifully and realistically in terms of painting as a hand. It's all what are you going to do? There it is. Now let's look at, okay, hold on a second. Okay, so here's a detail. There were no hands on Victor Choquet's here. But here's another detail. A completely different aesthetic. One that it's not kind of like this paint. I mean, Cezanne worked painstakingly a lot, but he wasn't kind of chained to this concept of realism that Da Vinci obviously was attached to. Here, the brush is just as important as the color, is just as important as the motif, and is absolutely in balance with the consciousness of Cezanne. In other words, if you look at the Cezanne painting, this detail expresses it beautifully. The color is beautiful across the surface. Forget that it's a picture, the guy's mouth and chin and beard. Forget it. Just look at it as color. And it's this beautiful range of tonalities, very subtle and directly expressed in terms of the brush. So the color is no more important than the brush, and the picture element is no more important than the brush, and the picture element is no more important than the use of color. So all those things are in perfect balance here with Cezanne. And this is not, you can't do this from strictly a technical, intellectual point of view. You have to be profoundly tuned in to an intuitive feeling quality within yourself to be able to express yourself as the medium so profoundly. Now, it might take a little bit of thinking and a little bit of experience of looking to get really clearly what I'm saying. But that, to have the picture be no more important than the color and the brush, and everything expressing the consciousness of the artist, that is a much more mature statement aesthetically, philosophically, about art and reality, the reality of the universe and color and form, than the Mona Lisa that Da Vinci did. And that is the essence of modernism. And the real beginning of any kind of modernism starts with the Impressionists and the post-impressionists. I'm not to say that, that's not to say there weren't artists before that who were exploring the aesthetic nature of the medium, like Daumier was I think a generation earlier. He may very well be the father of modernism and inspired these guys quite a bit. But you can go back through history and look at artists who are using the medium to express who they are this profoundly. Cezanne stands out historically because of just the profound, his ability to insert himself in the medium to this degree and have it still be universal, this marriage of the universal and the personal. Other artists have done it. Other great artists, Monet, Rembrandt, Michelangelo. You can go on, Van Gogh, Gauguin. Okay, I'm going to go back to the first, just the full pictures. So, on the one hand, you have what is modern art and the beginnings of modern art in Cezanne. And you have a technically masterful portrait of a woman, Mona Lisa, which doesn't begin to sing in the same way as the medium. If you can just see, one is a painting, one is much more about painting. The other one is much more about Leonardo's technical ability to reproduce that kind of detail and his willingness to do it, and the sitter, Mona Lisa, than it is about painting. The picture is more important. And well, I hope that wasn't too ponderous. I think, well, we'll leave it there for this thing. I'd love to hear you if you have any questions or comments. And, I'll leave some links below the video to allow you to check out a link to my exercise and my blog, which I would really appreciate if you followed. You keep up with these posts and follow my YouTube channel and share it as much as you can, or feel free to do so. And I hope you gain something from it. Let me know. Apply this exercise next time you go to a museum. Don't use it simply as a intellectual exercise, but experience receptively those qualities in the work and see what they do to your nervous system. See how your nervous system responds to that kind of